Okay, everyone, by my watch, it looks like it is 10 o'clock. So we will go ahead and get started. Welcome to our webinar today, Wednesday webinar. I think this is the last one we've got for Wednesdays. Our today's topic will be using your facilitation skills to be an effective host. And this is one of the few webinars that we have specific to a particular type of provider. So, and this one's for you, service coordinators. So we'll go ahead and get us going. Our facilitators today, we've actually got 4 facilitators, and I'm going to let each one introduce themselves. But I will point you out, we have Sarah Nichols, who's a professional development specialist with the training program, Maria Kastanis, who is our assistant director at the training program, Amber Ortiz, who is a service coordinator at CFC4, who is actually having a little difficulty getting in. So we're hanging out waiting on her to get here. And Shamika Brown, who is a service coordinator with CFC21. Each of these ladies has great experience and lots of good information to share with you, and they will tell you more about that as they go. Hang on. I'm getting all sorts of messages coming up on my computer here. All right. This is me, so Maria Maddox, and I'll be the voice kind of behind everybody. If you have any problems, any questions, please feel free to shoot me a chat, and I can address those however we need to. And hopefully you all can hear okay. And if you have any problems with volume, also just let us know, and we'll try to deal with that as we go. Just like any other webinar, at the end of the webinar, you will get an email from the training program, and in that email will be a survey and for you to complete. And once you complete that survey, you will get a certificate of attendance. So if you did join as a group, you will each need to have logged in or contacted individually, or at least signed in individually to get an email. So if that is not the case, you'll need to check with the training program. But be on the lookout for that email. It oftentimes will end up in somebody's junk mail. So just if you haven't got it within the next 24 hours, in fact, I think they come out within an hour of the end of the webinar. But if you haven't received it, check your junk mail, and then you can contact the training program if there's any problems. We use a variety of different ways to communicate, and one of them is through our chat function. Many of you have found that chat function. If you look at the bottom, most of your computers will look the same. Typically the chat box is at the bottom left-hand corner, and anything that you type in there, everyone can see. You do have the ability to send private chats to me or anyone else if you need to, and you can do that by clicking on a drop-down box right next to your name. Or actually, I guess it would be right next to the person's name that you're wanting to send a message to. Also on that chat box, you will see 4 little lines, 4 or 5 little lines. That you can click, and you can make your chat box bigger or smaller, so that you can see more of the conversation that is taking place. However you want to do that, put that wherever you want on your desktop. We are going to use this chat box for you to, for sure, ask any questions that you may have, share any strategies, respond to questions that the presenters may offer to you, say hello to one another. Really, anything that you would say verbally in a face-to-face session, type it in here. One of the things, though, I will ask you that if you have a question that pops up in your head, don't wait for a moment, a break. Go ahead and type it in then, and then if we can deal with it in the course of that conversation right then and there, we will. And if not, we'll at least have it queued up and ready for when we do actually have a break and can address those questions. So this training is for you, and the presenters will tell you more about that, but the more that you can interact and engage with us, the better it's going to be. A couple of other ways that you can, if you hear something that somebody says that you think, yeah, that's pretty awesome, you can click an emoticon. That's that first box right under your name. And you know, just kind of express your emotions at that point in time. We skip the second box. The third box is a hand raise option. So if maybe the presenters are going to ask you how many of you have whatever, XYZ, raise your hand. You would click that third box under your name, and you'll see I've done that as well. So the fourth box under your name is a polling function. The polling function is something that we'll use throughout. Sometimes it has a check box like it does here on the screen, and sometimes it has a letter A in it like it does actually on under your name right now. So we're going to use this polling function to kind of get some feedback from you all. So we're going to start with a poll. And our question out to you is, how long have you been a service coordinator? So if you've been a service coordinator for 0 to 6 months, please select A, 6 months to a year, select B, and so forth and so on. Use that fourth box under your name to do your response rather than in the chat box. So use the fourth box under your name and click that in there. If you are on a phone, that may be a little bit more difficult. I'm not really sure how it works when you're on a phone. So, okay. All right, we'll give folks a few minutes to respond, and I do ask that all of you respond to that, please. See more responses coming in. All right, let's see what we've got here. So, ladies, you have a variety of experiences that are participating in here. So some over half, it looks like, close to half have been less than a year. Got some folks that have been around a while. So that's your audience for today. I welcome your input and all of that. Many of you have got some great experiences to share. So please do so. And with that being said, I am going to turn this over now to our presenters who will tell you a little bit more about themselves.
Good morning, everybody. This is Sarah Nichols. Can you hear me okay? Ladies? Maria, can you just give me a quick, oh, yeah, both Marias and Shmika raised their hand to say yes. Okay, and thanks for Heather and Elise chiming in. So my name is Sarah Nichols, and as Maria mentioned, I'm a professional development specialist with the EI training program. I also have experience as a service coordinator. I was a service coordinator for 7 years with CFC 5 in DuPage County, and I've been working with the training program for about 15 years now. So service coordination is something that's always been near and dear to my heart, and even though I haven't been in the role for quite some time, I'm still very passionate about it, and I love learning from what other service coordinators are doing and just hearing about what's working and what's not working through all the experiences that you have to share. And as Maria had mentioned with the poll that you did, I mean, we've got a lot of folks with a variety of experience. We have some new folks, so you know, if you've recently been through training, you might be really primed on some of the things that we're going to be talking about today and have some really good questions for the group. And likewise, for folks that have been doing this for a little while, you've got a lot of different experiences and things that you know have worked or not worked. So we're hoping that everybody feels comfortable with sharing. We want this to be engaging. I know it's kind of hard when you're not seeing people face-to-face or able to pick up the microphone or the phone and actually share, but we'll do the best we can to incorporate all the feedback that you're chatting in and keep this as interactive as possible. We are, as a group of co-hosts today, going to be kind of chiming in and sharing in the discussions we're engaging in. So we'll, give, why don't we do this real quick? Maria Kastanis, do you just want to give a quick hello to everybody?
Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Kastanis. I see a lot of familiar names, I should say, from the service coordination webinars, and I want to welcome those people and welcome everyone else as well. A little bit about my background. I'm currently with the training program. I've been with them for a few years. I've also been a service coordinator for 17 years through CFC 11 in the city, and just like Sarah, service coordination is something that is very near and dear to my heart, and I think that many times it doesn't matter how long you've been a service coordinator, there's always opportunities to learn new things, improve your service coordination skills, and really learn from other people. I've learned a lot of stuff from brand new service coordinators, and really enjoy working collaboratively with everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. And Amber, do you want to go ahead and just give everybody a quick hello from you?
Let's go ahead and see if Shamika can go ahead and say hello.
Okay, Amber, if you're working on your microphone, we'll let Shamika go first.
Hi, good morning. My name is Shamika Brown. I am still a fairly new service coordinator. I'll be with the CFC 3 years in July. I have truly enjoyed my time with early intervention, and just like you guys, I still feel new, but I have been welcomed and still learning. So as Sarah and Maria said, both of Maria said, ask questions, comment, chat, and we'll respond, because I am where you are daily, and if I have anything that has helped me that can help you, just ask. So thanks for the opportunity.
All right, and just checking in, I know, Amber, you're still working on your mic. Are you ready? Are you able to say hello yet? Okay. Well,
we'll have Amber check in whenever she gets her mic working. She's just going to pop in and say hello no matter who's talking, so we'll just kind of anticipate that.
Yeah, and Amber, if you want to go ahead too, and just because I know you've been able to do work the chat, so just go ahead if you just want to do a quick welcome to everybody in the room. Just let everybody know where you're from, and I'll get started on the objectives, and we'll hear your voice when you're able to. So. All right. So we put together quite an ambitious list of things that we were thinking that might be interesting and meaningful for us to go over today. But to be honest with you, we've got 90 minutes for our discussion today, and we really want this to be interactive. So it's going to be pretty difficult to get through every single one of these things in great detail. So we're going to kind of do the best we can, but we want to be respectful of where you guys want to spend your time today through this discussion. And yeah, we're also going to talk about some opportunities we're going to try to create for when we can possibly continue some of the conversation. So if we get started on a few things today and we don't finish them, we've got some opportunities and some ideas for possible future engagement and discussions that we can engage in. So, all right. So our objectives are, we're going to do a little bit of reviewing the online portion of what you've completed already prior to participating today. It's going to talk a little bit about the facilitation piece, and then if you've completed that reflection worksheet that was in the online portion, you were introduced to the concept of being a meeting host. So we're going to break that down a little bit together as a group today. We're going to help you kind of think about all the different strengths that you have and what's really working well for you, and hopefully you'll be willing to share some of those facilitation and hosting strengths with the group today. We'll talk a little bit about time management activities. Hopefully folks will have some ideas.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can.
Okay. Sorry, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, to be interrupted.
That's okay. Good. We know you're working. That's awesome. So, okay. Thanks, Amber.
Thank you.
So, so Amber's going to help take the lead on one of the activities here in a little bit. So glad we've got the mic working. Amber, did you want to just do a quick hello, or and then you just put your chat in there? So.
I wrote it. You can keep going.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
All right. So we'll go over some time management things. Since service coordinators have so much to do at all times, and you're in and out of the office, and you're accomplishing a lot of activities, planning, preparing for a meeting, as well as what you do during a meeting and after a meeting. So we'll try to cover a few of those things today. thinking about the team members, that teaming collaboration piece, and utilizing the strengths of the other team members, and what, kind of identifying what they bring and how they can support you. And balance out, maybe help complement you with some of the things that maybe you struggle with, since we all have different things that we're really good at and other parts of sometimes, the role that, we could use a little bit more support from our team members with. Consensus and really achieving consensus, and sometimes when we think about consensus, we think about the conflicts that we might arise, or hopefully we don't engage in too many conflicts, but we recognize that sometimes when you're teaming and collaborating with a variety of different people, it can be a little bit challenging at times. So we'll kind of scratch the surface a little bit on the consensus building activities, but that may be something that we end up talking a little bit more about in some follow-up conversations, because it's really a digging deeper type of a conversation. So, all right, so I see some folks are chatting in a little bit here already. We'll go ahead and kind of give this little preview, and I want you to think about this kind of right now. We've got a variety of different ways we can interact. We'll start our conversation today, but if we end up kind of moving through things a little bit faster than you want, we want you to kind of speak up and let us know what's important to you. And some of the ways that we're thinking about continuing the conversation is possibly we could do another conversation like this around a similar topic, or a topic that builds upon whatever we haven't really quite finished today. We can do something, we've got some blocks of time set aside at the upcoming CFC conferences, so if you're planning to attend the CFC conferences, that might be a way that we can engage. We also set up a discussion board in the Moodle environment when you're doing the online training. That can be a platform for sharing and continuing the conversation with strategies that way. And we've got a few other tools that we've used for some other meetings and groups that we've facilitated that we can consider. So think about, as we're going through some of the things today, what you feel like you really want to dig down deeper into beyond what we have time to do today. And when we wrap up the conversation today, we'll identify not only some of those topics of interest, but some of the methods or avenues that you might be interested in keeping those conversations going. So let's just do a really quick check-in, and if you want to use the chat for this, so when you saw this title and you did the online portion already and the activity, hopefully you were kind of thinking about something that connected with you right away. So if you can just chat in right now, just take a few minutes. When this webinar is over, what do you hope to be able to achieve, or what are you hoping to get out of our time together today?
Okay, so find your chat box there and see what kind of responses that we get. I see lots of people chatting. Right, we're getting some responses in. Well, this says facilitating IFSPs more smoothly. Kaylee is talking about making intakes as efficient as possible. Tanisha being a better facilitator. Becca learning how to approach difficult conversations. All very, I think all things that you're covering today a little bit. Being a better facilitator. Yes, being Joanna, improving her skills. Kristen, being a better facilitator. Let's see, some more being better facilitators. Casey, learning new ideas and areas of discussion. Getting feedback from others. Yep. Still learning, increasing my skills. Stephanie and Heather. Let's see. Becca, making sure families' opinions and concerns are addressed and heard. Awesome.
Okay. All right. So thanks for chiming in, and collectively between Maria Maddox as our moderator, Maria Kastanis, and Amber and Shamika and I co-hosting and facilitating today, we will make sure we come back to these things and collectively find ways to engage in the conversations that are most meaningful to you for your time today. We also wanted to take a few minutes just here to kind of recap the online training and the reflection activity that you completed. If you remember, the online portion introduced some different components about being a manager, being a leader, or manager slash leader of the meeting, being a timekeeper, a gatekeeper, and a consensus builder. So some of you might have completed the online training a couple of weeks ago. If you did it as part of the new online service coordination training, maybe you did it a couple of months ago. And some of you, if you're kind of last minute procrastinators like I am, sometimes you might have just finished it a couple of hours ago. So we just want to check in and just see if we can reflect for a few minutes on when you think about your ability to be an effective manager or leader at a meeting, a timekeeper, the gatekeeper, or the consensus builder. What do you feel like? I mean, you might be great at all of these things, but what do you feel like your greatest strength is? So we're just going to do another quick poll similar to that first one, where you use that box and check A, B, C, D, or E. We'll give folks a few minutes to just chime in and let us know what you feel like you're really good at.
This one takes a little bit of thinking about. So as folks find that fourth box that has the letter A under your name, click that open and you can click A, B, C, D, or E. That way we can pull that up and be able to publish those results on the screen rather than if you type them in. So folks, a few more seconds to do that. Thinking about that. This one's always a hard one for me, Sarah. Because sometimes I think I'm one and sometimes I'm thinking another. So maybe it's just how you feel today. How do you feel today?
And I think sometimes it also impacts just, the team that you're on. When you're really comfortable with the team members and the other folks sitting around the table with you, sometimes you feel like you're really kicking butt at E and you're able to be all of them because, if you got a great team around you, you feel like you're stronger and more confident with your skills.
All right, so here's the results that we had so far. We still had quite a few that didn't respond, but of the ones that did, it looks like everyone felt like they're pretty good at timekeeping and consensus building.
That's awesome, because I think consensus is one of the things that is one of the more challenging aspects that service coordinators are faced with as they facilitate meetings. And so if we've got a lot of folks that feel like that's something they're really good at, hopefully when we get to that topic, you guys can chime in and share what's working for you. And I see some other folks have been chiming in through the chat, just talking about how it depends on the team. They're still trying to figure out, they're still learning and figure out what they're really good at yet. So, all right, so let's see here. So let's talk a little bit about what it means to be a host. And so the reflection activity that was completed right after the facilitation piece talked about being a host and really thinking about that, maximizing collective intelligence, welcoming and listening to diverse viewpoints, maximizing participation and civility, and transforming conflict into creative cooperation. And so you're thinking, well, hosting, yeah, I mean, we're doing that as facilitators too, aren't we? So, first time I really was introduced to the concept of hosting and I was reading about what it was, I was thinking it's pretty similar to what I do, or what I think that I do. And there's a lot of overlap, and this is just a quote that differentiated it. Helped me make a little bit more sense of how it is different or similar to, what really are the differences between facilitation. And so, we know that training is getting what you want out of or into people. So you go to a training, you hopefully achieve some skills. I'd honestly like to think that today, I wouldn't even want to call what we're doing today a training, because I'm hoping that it's real collective and engaging, and that we can all learn and grow a little bit together today, rather than be what we would consider a traditional training. Facilitation is getting what you want out of people, and the hosting is creating and holding space for emergence. So there's going to be times, I think, today where you might see each of us model a little bit of facilitation where we've got an agenda, we've got a limited amount of time to complete certain activities and objectives and make sure that we're addressing the things that are of high interest to you and meaningful to you. And then there's other times where we're really trying to create that space and hold for emergence to grow. So, we're probably going to be working in and out of these roles a little bit, very similarly to how you might do or how you might perform as a service coordinator in a meeting, kind of working in and out of the role of a facilitator and a host. Maria Kastanis, before we move on to the activity, was there anything that you wanted to add about just what that difference was and what spoke to you when you first learned about hosting and thinking about this concept?
Yeah, in thinking about this, I think even not necessarily just in meeting, but I think we use these three concepts throughout our time in service coordination. So even thinking about those first meetings with families, you're really you're giving them information, you're getting what you're giving families information, they're sharing information from you, and you're really letting even that first intake meeting kind of guide these next steps. So for me, when I first found out about hosting, it was interesting, and I said, well, gosh, I've done that for years as a service coordinator. I just didn't consider it in my head as hosting. So as I learned more and more about it, I realized that it really is a big part of service coordination, in addition to the other concepts as well.
So we're going to take a few minutes, and we want to hear from you a little bit on this. When one of the activities that you completed was this reflection worksheet, where you could reflect on some different components of hosting and facilitating and what that looks like in your role. And so again, recognizing that we've got some folks that are relatively new to the role, and you might not have a whole lot of meetings that you've experienced maybe quite yet, but you've probably observed and listened and watched what other folks are doing, and as you're formulating and kind of identifying what your style is going to be. So let's take a few minutes and kind of reflect a little bit. We asked Amber and Shamika to kind of go through some of these on their own and share with us as well. And so I'm going to pass this over to you, Amber. If you are on the mic and ready, if you can maybe share some of your experiences with this. And while she's doing that, if you guys want to start, chatting in some of the responses that you may have came up with when you did this activity. So really starting with the hosting piece and what connected with you. Amber?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep. Okay, good.
Yes, when I did this activity, when I thought about how I share responsibilities, one thing I do, because we're so busy as coordinators, I don't know if in other areas of therapists will do this, but sometimes the therapist will actually take the lead and make the phone call for me to schedule the evaluations in the IFSP, and that helps a lot. Take one thing off my plate, kind of put this all in the same boat. We just kind of, hey, I'll make the call, or I will. It's just kind of random, but that helps me a lot. And for how I bring about order or regulate the activities during the meeting, what really helps me is I always do a little quick walkthrough of what's going to happen in the meeting and what the order is going to be. That way I feel the family knows what to expect, the therapists know what to expect, especially if they don't normally work with me, and that seems to help a lot. Do you want me to do all of them? All my ideas? Or? Hello?
Go for it.
Can you hear me? Okay. So for adaptive, what projects do you find yourself most adaptive? Firstly, I try to be really flexible in terms of what the parent wants to talk about. and try to let them say what they want to be said. Sometimes the therapist can kind of overrun and kind of try to control that. Even if it's not really EI appropriate, I think it's helpful just let the parents get it all out, and then I can see where they're at and then lead them back to, well, you know, this doesn't really fall under EI or whatever. But that way you really let them talk and let them get said. I try to be flexible that way. And then contributing, some people have differing opinions. I do struggle with this one personally, because I don't really like conflict, but I try to contribute by mentioning something Mom had previously mentioned to me if it wasn't already talked about. Offer resources if I see it appropriate. If I have a strategy that I'm pretty sure would work but not mentioned. Sorry, I misunderstood. How do I contribute to the team? Sorry. Yeah, so I will try to give my own ideas if I'm pretty sure it'll be good. I try to reiterate EI philosophy to try to keep things on track, things like that.
We've got a couple people chiming in. It looks like Jennifer said that one of the things that she does, just kind of as she's getting organized, is she, when she completes an intake meeting, she schedules the IFSP meeting, you know, right away. Let's see. For other meetings, she tries to coordinate and kind of figure out how to schedule it around a time that another therapist or therapists are already going to be there, so that helps. So anybody else that when you were thinking about, you know, the hosting component, and when we talk about hosting, again, that creating space for emergence, really allowing yourself to be a participant and contributor, but let the group be engaged and involved, and not totally, you know, not totally in control per se. When you think about the hosting piece, like really being comfortable with yourself, knowing you've got an agenda to keep, but kind of sitting back and allowing the group to emerge with their discussions and the outcomes that are developed. Anybody else have anything that they wanted to contribute?
Sarah, this is Maria, and I love Amber's tip of really letting the family know of what almost the agenda will be like for the meeting. And you know, when I was a service coordinator, that was something I did often, but I think like the adaptive and responsive part really really hits home for me, because one of the things that I think I would always tell myself as a service coordinator, you know, this is something that's being creative. It's individualized. It really, you know, you walk into this meeting and yes, there's an agenda and we have to follow certain things, but really it's gonna kind of emerge based on the priorities of the family and the priorities of that group coming together and really creating something that's unique and individualized. So this adaptive responsive is something that really really is true to my heart, because I really I feel that, you know, we have these agendas, but at the same time we have to let it be individualized and really kind of let the meeting kind of guide where everyone is going to go. So that's a big one for me as well.
So let's, Maria, I know, Maria Maddox, I think you're taking some great notes for us. I don't know if they're going to transfer over when we flip to the next slide here, because I think some of them might carry over a little bit. So thinking about in comparison from the hosting aspect to really when you have to wear that facilitator hat. So we talked a little bit about, I think Amber, you mentioned the early intervention principles. You kind of go back and kind of rely on that. That's something that we don't really have a lot of flexibility with, because we need to stay connected to those. So that might be a time when you step into more of a in-charge role rather than let the group kind of convene and see where the discussion goes. So Amber, did you have some other things that you wanted to maybe highlight as far as like when you kind of flip in and out of that role between being a host and really stepping into being a facilitator?
Yeah, I feel like I got to become a facilitator more when things start kind of going off track. You know, sometimes if they're with each other, or if just, you know, it just happens, conversations go. I find that it becomes my role to really get us back on track. And again, depending on what direction it goes, if it's going somewhere that's outside of EI, then again I bring up the EI philosophy to bring it back. Have that in different order. Exercising control. Like a bell. Yeah, giving order does kind of give a roadmap. Control would be really dictating what's happening. You know, not a lot of flexibility, so definitely changes the dynamic, I feel, but sometimes I think I need to give the order. Okay, some points and process where you have to stuff. I don't know, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, is there anybody else that, we've got a few, Maria's taken some notes of some things. Is there anybody else that did this activity that felt like they really, that there was a component of it, whether it was connected to the hosting piece or the facilitation piece that really resonated with them? I hear somebody else that wrote in that they also really liked the agenda.
Okay, this is Shamika.
Multiple people are feeling good about that.
I know recently with some of the changes that we're going through with the way that we have our IFSP meetings, as Amber stated earlier about making sure that the family has their role, I think that's sometime when we have to facilitate and take charge, because you have some families that feel that they don't know their child or they can't give ideas or their concerns. So I think that's when we have to sometimes take control and say, okay, and go back to that intake meeting that we have and allow the family, us to say, okay, well, family, when we have intake meeting, you said you were having trouble in the grocery store or you were having trouble with him sleeping. Let's be, when it comes to those goals, because, you know, when we get to the IFSP, we go through everything and then it's like, okay, well, yes, he has concerns with stacking blocks or lacing his shoes, but that's not the concern of the family. Let's go with what the concern was with the family and build some of those skills. And I think that's when we have to take control, because we can write goals for families that it's not what we discussed at the intake. Now we're writing goals based off of the scoring of the assessments, and that's not the EI way. And I think sometimes when we get into a meeting and the family hear, oh, my child is 50% in this area, they forget about what their big concern was about not being able to sleep at night, or we were transitioning and they're worried about, okay, my child is 50% behind in this area, let's make a goal. And then when we come back in 6 months, those concerns have increased because that child, the main goal that she had to concern with was never addressed. So just being sure that we always bring it back to the parents to facilitate, hey, you know, let's talk about what you felt at that intake meeting, because we can lose focus in those meetings based off the scoring and the testing.
Absolutely, Shamika, this is Maria, and that I think it's always important to think back, and when you're thinking about the outcomes and really bringing it back to the priorities that the parent has initially identified, and really working those within the outcomes to make those outcomes functional and measurable. So I think it's just such a great point, because sometimes you can lose track of what the initial priorities were of the family.
All right. So thanks everybody for sharing. So as we kind of move forward, I'm going to think about kind of these things as a host and as a facilitator, and how you might move in and out in those roles through a variety of activities. We're going to pause just for a minute here. I know we've kind of allowed, you guys to chat in all along, so there might not be a whole lot of questions just yet, but just pause here for just a minute, and if anybody has any questions before we move on about what they learned from the online portion and the difference or comparison between being a host and a facilitator.
Kind of looking through the attendance list, I'm not seeing anybody typing, so I think we're probably good so far.
Okay. Thanks, Maria. So we wanted to have a little bit of fun with this web conversation, and so we were kind of thinking about that, wearing that hat as a host. And when you host a dinner party, you're not really so much of a facilitator, but you're a host. And some of us really love to host dinner parties. If you're like me, who's really meticulous and obsesses over the house has to be spotless and the food has to be perfect, it might be something that brings you a little bit of anxiety rather than being something that you enjoy. So let's just a quick fun poll here. How many of you guys like to host a dinner party? If you love it, select A. If you kind of feel like you could go either way, select B. And if you're kind of like me, you avoid it at all costs, maybe you would select C.
Right. We'll give folks a chance to answer that and find that fourth box under your name. Let's see, getting some good responses here. Give folks a little bit of time. Some are saying, oh, but it's too much work to respond to the polls. Oh, I feel your pain, but please do it anyway. All right, let's see what we've got here. Publish. There we go. So, this is interesting. So, most people want to be a part of parties, but the majority would rather be a guest and let somebody else do the hosting for them. There you go.
And you know, I love this because there's still 31% of the people that responded love to host dinner parties. So so that's great. So there's a lot of folks out here on the call today that are not super shy and feel like they've got a good skill set in being a host. And we've got a good number of people who could really go either way. Know that it's, you know, part of something that you can do to get an end result of a great party. All right, so we got folks from a variety of perspectives here, and wanted to kind of think about what that means as it compares to your role as a service coordinator. So there's a lot of different things that you do as a service coordinator, and so one component is the IFSP meeting and facilitating it, and some folks might feel like, you know, they really love the IFSP meeting part because they like to get out of the office and they like to be sitting around a team and problem solving and working with families and writing plans and that intimate aspect of just that connectivity that you have with the team. And other folks feel like, gosh, you know, I'm really great at, you know, the paperwork and I can coordinate, I'm really organized, but I get really anxious or uncomfortable and struggle with that aspect of the role. So, so if you kind of think about, like, so I'm just kind of curious, those of you that said you really love to host dinner parties, do you feel like you also feel pretty comfortable and really enjoy hosting IFSP meetings as well? And you could just use the chat and just let us know if you kind of feel that there's a little bit of a correlation between your hosting and how you feel about being a host as it compares to being a IFSP meeting facilitator. I hear other people writing into you about really liking to host at parties at other people's houses. Loving to decorate and have fun. Folks saying, I don't mind the IFSP meetings because I get to see the families. Parties are a whole other adventure. It's a lot of cleanup after the meetings. So, all right. So yeah, they both require a lot of plan. And, you know, so there might be some folks that really like to host and like to facilitate and just really want to be social and engaged. So if we were doing a potluck dinner, you think about all the different things. So if you're hosting a potluck dinner, what are some of the things that you would need to coordinate and plan? And we're just going to use the chat for this. So I'll give you guys a few minutes. And Shamika, I'm going to give you the floor here just for a couple minutes because I think when we started talking about this hosting aspect, you had some pretty fun things connected to the party aspect.
Okay. I think when you're, and I know why people are typing, I know one thing that I find as you talk to the IFSP meeting, but when you're doing a potluck dinner, you have to make sure You have your gluten-free people, your dairy-free people. Make sure nobody's allergic, or if you have animals in the home and all of those things. So I think and then also when you think about kind of hosting, like, is it going to be fun and games? Are we all going to sit at the table? Different things like that. But when it comes to an IFSP meeting, that's one thing you have to think about. After we meet a family in intake, and as new service coordinators, you'll get a feel for it. You have to know your providers sometimes, because, sometimes we can pull out a book and allow the families to pick providers, but then we know sometimes some providers don't come to that area, or, you're limited. Like from my area, sometimes we're limited for providers, so I know I only have so many providers, but I know, okay, if this family is shy, I can't give them an aggressive person. So you have to look at all aspects, because you don't want to come into somebody's home hosting a IFSP and they feel intimidated, because then it's like, okay, it's not a party, so it's not exciting. So I think you have to make sure that when you go out to the home, you're prepared for it. You know what the concerns were when you go in, so the child might need to have communication concerns, so you might need a speech or developmental therapy. You need a developmental therapist. Making sure that you have all the paperwork that you need to go into that meeting, and most of all, making sure that you have dates available. Like, we go out, look at your calendar to make sure, okay, well, I know that this IFSP is due at this time, and I know today's this day. Give yourself flexibility on dates to give the family more options, as well as providers, to get the information out, and also making sure that you're prepping yourself and giving yourself time to still be able to process and get everything done in a timely manner so you don't get behind. So it's really important just understanding the family, your timelines overall, and your team members, because, we're limited in some areas with so many speech, so many DT, so many whatever else the disciplines are. So we have to make sure that when we go out, we know what we're walking into, and we know who we have when we leave out of that meeting to help us. That kind of helps make us a little bit better.
So I see some folks that are also chiming in. We've got 3 questions on the slide. You don't have to answer all 3 of them, but take a few minutes and I'll kind of share back. Or Maria Kastanis, do you want to kind of debrief some of what you've seen, like what people have been highlighting in addition to what Shamika's shared?
I think what, if you don't mind me saying, what Jennifer just said is basically is that we have to learn how to to be able to juggle. I think someone else said in a thing earlier that, I think it was one of the Marias, that we do a lot of troubleshooting. So we have to feel comfortable with the understanding we're going to have to juggle, and we might have to say yes to this and no to this, or be feeling comfortable enough to say it and understand that it's not going to just work out perfect. We're going to have some kind of problem. That's another thing as a service coordinator, because when you're new, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm overwhelmed, I make mistakes, but it's part of the job, and understanding that when you recognize the concern, you fix it in a timely manner.
And I also think that someone said earlier in the chat that at the beginning, initially, you might be fine with planning it, but you're still kind of learning for the meeting and facilitating the meeting and hosting it. And I think that's pretty common among service coordinators. Initially, the planning part, you can arrange it, you can make the schedule, and then actually being at the meeting and hosting the meeting might seem more challenging. That does change over time, and that changes because you really, I'm going to go through some of these things in the chat box. Let's see. Jennifer said being flexible is key. The job is living in the gray. Things are not just black and white. Sometimes we have providers that are allergic to, this is from Jennifer, to cigarette smokes, and some are afraid of dogs. Sometimes our families have dogs. And, there's a lot to juggle and really kind of think about, like, how it's all going to work out. There's workaround, through a lot of things. So going back to that flexibility, really thinking about how are you going to make that meeting work for everyone involved. Really managing the different personalities, I think Jennifer said that she has a checklist of what she needs and what she's going to bring, and that really helps her. I think that's about it. I'm going to turn it back to you, Sarah.
Yeah, and it looks like Caitlin mentioned something too here about going over different options. When you think about the planning and preparing to make sure everybody's going to be there and everybody's going to have enough time, one of the strategies she uses is that she goes over 2 or 3 options from families when they're available for the IFSP meeting. I'm just curious about how many folks on the call today, if you're at an initial IFSP meeting, how many folks plan and schedule the 6-month review or the annual review when you're all together at one of the other scheduled meetings? Do folks do that? Anybody else do that? You just want to try it in? Yep. Shamika, you said that you guys do that. Amber says that they've done that. So I know that's a strategy that some folks have found has worked really well, and just, for planning and preparation. And then it's just one last thing that you might have to do, 6 weeks before the meeting when you're scrambling to get folks. If you've got the meeting, those meetings scheduled 6 months in advance, that's something that can be a useful tool. All right. So we've touched on some of our objectives here. That identifying being a facilitator and a meeting host, kind of thinking about your strengths as a facilitator and a host, and some of the time management for getting ready for the meetings. Any questions at this point in time related to what we've shared? If you feel like we're not going fast enough and you say, hey, I thought we were going to get to this, and we've been on this call together for about 30 minutes or so and we haven't gotten there yet, now's your time to kind of write in and say, can we really spend some time on this?
Well, folks looks like maybe a couple of people typing here. I just want to say I love the correlation between hosting a party and hosting a meeting, whether you're the primary host or you're hosting a potluck, and how those take different skills. That's really kind of a cool thing to compare. It's kind of cool. So,
and Maria, when Maria Kastanis and I were first kind of thinking about some of the parallel processes when we were thinking about what this web conversation might look like, we were just talking about thinking about all the different things you have to coordinate and all the moving parts. If you're coordinating that potluck dinner, we had a lot of people talk about, and Shamika shared too, about the allergies and whatnot. But what happens if folks drop something off? They bring you a dish and they don't stay the whole time and they leave, and then you've got a bunch of food sitting on your countertop, but you don't even know what's in it. And so just some of the challenges and how sometimes not only the coordination and making sure all those components are right, but what might happen if you have some of the ingredients or the food, but you don't really have the person there to contribute to the party, to having fun at the party with you, engaging in conversations with them, but to even find out what they prepared and what you might want to eat or not eat. So we kind of thought that might be a good comparison with some of the things that service coordinators experience when you're trying to coordinate a meeting and people send in reports, but not everybody fully participates sometimes. So
I'm not seeing any questions come in. I'm just seeing some comments. So I think you can probably move forward.
Okay. So some of planning for both a party and an IFSP meeting is understanding your guest skills or understanding your teammates' skills and strengths. So if you're planning for a potluck and you've got a bunch of people that are volunteering to contribute, you've got some people that might be really good at baking, somebody that's really good at cooking, and they might be somebody that can bring a main dish, and then you might have somebody that's not really good at either one of those things, and you just ask them to bring the wine or bring something else to contribute to the party. So similarly speaking, you know, when you are planning and preparing for an IFSP meeting and you're getting to know families and what their strengths are and what they bring to the team and where they feel like they need support within their daily routines and activities, you're working to identify the team members that have the skills and the strengths that can really be a good match and that be a good fit for that family. And so it's not always just about who's got an opening, but who's got the skills. And with that said, when you're sitting together as a team, when you look back at what you've learned from the facilitating team meetings online portion, thinking about those skills, that you might have some folks at your table that are really good meeting facilitators or collaborators or contributors that can support you in the facilitation activities. I'm going to pause just for a few minutes here. It looks like there's been a few things chiming in. Maria Kastanis, is there anything you wanted to kind of add about this and summarize for some of what people have been sharing?
Sorry, I didn't have my mic on. That was me. Sorry, I was talking and you guys couldn't hear me. I was saying that I want to go back to something Shamika said earlier. She said, sometimes she has to look at also the family and who's going to be the best team to support that family. So when even thinking about that meeting, thinking about, if the family is really shy, she's going to look into finding providers that will really be supportive of that family so the family does have a voice in the meeting. I think that's just so key to remember. I'm going to go through some of the chat. Let's see. Jennifer said that they cover 4 counties, and all 7 cover Sangamon, but the other 3 only have a few service coordinators. So Jennifer covers 1 county, and they have a different book with providers, so they kind of vary it by that area where the where the families live. Tanisha said, it bothers me when providers don't allow enough time for the evaluation and they rush to go first so they can leave, or leave and call in because they have another eval scheduled. The family deserves to have everyone's full attention. Absolutely, Tanisha, that used to bother me a lot as a service coordinator. And, one of the tips that I always used as a service coordinator, I would say to providers, block out this time for the meeting. If you can't block out that time, then this may not be the family for you. So definitely there's little things as a service coordinator that you can kind of do just to make sure that the family does have the full attention of the team. Let me see what else.
Maria, one of the things that a lot of people are chiming in about is just the providers that don't really plan enough time, and how do we really get them to participate and fully participate.
Can I say something for this one, Sarah? If you don't mind.
Yeah.
What I've learned, and I said this in one of our leadership meetings, and I kind of felt bad, but it was the truth. And I was typing it in as well, is that when that happens and you feel kind of bad, I start using other providers, or I start telling them, well, like, I need you to guarantee me that you can do an hour for your eval or however much time, and then basically need another hour if possible to just have an IFSP meeting, because you're getting 180-minute off. That's just for an eval by itself. You're not going to give me a 30-minute eval and then go home and do an hour and however many more minutes on a report. So I let them know, if you cannot obligate at least possibly maximum 2 hours or a minimum, then I will have to get someone else. And then after that, when you're honest with them, they begin to understand, okay, she's not going to use me. And if you're limited, and they see and then once the word spreads, like if because, you know, as service coordinators, we talk at our meetings about what happens. We never say the provider, but we talk about these kind of things. Then we all start doing it, and then it changes the provider because they see, okay, well, I need to give the family more. So not so attacking, but like afterwards. And then I also say, if you cannot obligate for an arena, then maybe we should do separate evals. And then if that's the only provider you have and you need that time, then I'll go back to the time and say, hey, I know we wanted to try to do an arena in one day, but with limited providers and to give you the equal amount of time that you deserve to just get everything done, we would have to try to do it separately. And most families understand it because I'd rather for them to get more time and do it than rush to a meeting and they leave and me and the family. It makes you feel uncomfortable, and it's not EI. You know, that's not the right way. And to be honest, if they're not there for the whole eval, they really don't get an IFSP meeting off because they have to be there for the entirety, and our paperwork says that. So we started expressing those concerns so they know, hey, we're not playing. Like, this family deserves this from you.
Thanks for sharing, Shamika. You know, one of the things that I heard you say too is you know, you were setting the expectations, you were setting the boundaries and the parameters up front, and collectively, as a group of service coordinators in one office that work with many of the same providers, you seem like you were uniting that this was going to be a common theme, that they weren't going to hear just from you, but they were going to hear from other service coordinators because you were all going to stand by that. Is that right?
Yes, and that's what we've been doing, and I know they said it's kind of hard because some areas you have to be flexible, and that's understandable. Now, if there's a time where I know that I have no choice, but just let the families, like I ask if they have to do that, let you know ahead of time so that you can prep the family for that. Like, you know, we're limited providers at the moment, like, and it goes with that management. Open their door so that provider can communicate that they have to leave, and if you're in a hard-to-staff area, you can work and the family will know ahead of time instead of rushing through everything and walking out of the door and then calling in. You're uncomfortable and the family's uncomfortable, but if you have to do it, establish a relationship of communication where the providers say, hey, I can do this, but I'm going to have to leave by this time, and let the family know that, and then open their door to do over the phone, because, you know, that does happen sometimes over the phone. But don't get in and then you feel uncomfortable because it puts you on the spot like, okay, why didn't you know? And now this provider's gone, and now you got to call them in. You want to feel comfortable and still facilitate and host that meeting, and don't show your anxiety and frustration, because then the family might lose confidence, and then you'll lose confidence. So if we have to do that route, just let the provider know, hey, let me know ahead of time if you have to do this. And that's what we're starting to do, because sometimes we have to do that, but we're making sure overall as a team, as a CFC, that we're communicating these things, because if one person do one thing and my coworker do another, I'm the bad guy, and she's like, okay, guys, and pretty soon nobody will work with me on my team because I only do it this way. So it's really important to communicate and be flexible as an overall team with the providers and the family. Because families will say, okay, I understand, they can call in. They really don't mind. They just want to make sure that their child is getting what they need. So open the door for that.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like that there's people writing into about the planning in advance, being flexible, getting to know and develop that relationship with the family and the team members so everybody finds value and meaning in working together, and recognizing when time is limited, that if folks are skipping out, that it can impact the dynamics and impact the family, which, you know, a lot of folks might not think about it from that lens if they're just trying to get by with one appointment to another with a very full schedule and caseload. So, the kind of shifting back here really quick just to what you've learned a little bit with the online portion about like the different personality traits. The enthusiast, if you recall, is like the eager to help, see the big picture person. The mover is the task-orientated and self-confident person. And that's the person that, you know, is going to, when you get to the IFSP meeting, that's the provider that might be like, okay, we got to get through this because I've got somewhere else to be. The the thinker is going to want to, is probably more than happy to plan as much time as possible because they love the details, they love the facts, and sometimes the thinker can, prolong the meeting a little bit. I mean, I'm one of those people when I like details and facts that I can talk and talk and talk and talk, and I need other people on the team, like the co-host today, to sometimes say, hey, Sarah, let's give everybody else a chance to talk because I drive into the details. So having a good team, knowing your team members and kind of where your skills are at and what other people are good at can really help balance out the different skills that each person brings to the team. And then that role of a supporter, that flexible and cooperative. And so hopefully, as a service coordinator, we want to have the ability to be a little bit of all these things, but, knowing yourself and your skills and knowing what you're really good at, because we're not all going to be really great at all these things, but finding out kind of what really resonates with you and your style as a facilitator and a host, and then recognizing the strengths and the skills of the other team members that are sitting around the table. So everything from what you know about kind of the way the family likes to communicate and engage, and to the other team members that you work with over and over and over again for some of the teams that are more well established. You'll really start to identify who brings kind of what to the team and how you can rely on some of those other strengths. So Amber, do you want to share just a little bit of feedback? And as we look at these questions, folks chat in if you want to respond to these questions. We'll be brief as a group too. But what are some of the things that you've done, Amber, that help get your team to know each other better and rely on each other's skills and strengths?
It is kind of just, well, a lot of times, I try to use a variety of providers because I always try to pick who's best fit for the family, but I think most of us do end up using similar providers over and over again. And just a bit of small talk, a little bit here and there before and after the meetings, just getting to know them helps to build a little bit of a bond, gain each other background, and then when you do that, you can then find out more about their skills and strengths. Like, we have a therapist who does a lot with BCFS or the foster parent, and so once you get to know those kinds of, parts of them, then I know, oh, they'd be a great fit for this family next time, and the type of family and things like that. So just talking, getting to know them.
Sarah, sorry, I was going to add in sometimes knowing your team's strengths and knowing who the mover is, who the thinker is on that team, like thinking about past experience and really kind of keeping what your experience has been with those people in your back pocket. There's certain times of the meeting where you need that meeting to move along, so you may call upon the mover to help you move it along, or slow it down, call upon the thinker to help slow that meeting down and really discuss a certain point. So really knowing the strength of your team really helps you kind of set the tone for that meeting and slow it down or speed it up, or really keep it like focused on something. So when I was a service coordinator, that was something that really helps a lot, really, is knowing that who I can count on that team if that meeting was going too fast and I felt that the family was really overwhelmed. I would maybe go with the thinker and have them really kind of assist, or not really call upon them, but really partner with them to slow down that meeting so it can make work for the family.
Yeah, I've had multiple, if there's a social worker in that team, for whatever reason, I found myself many times, if a certain question has come up or whatever, I immediately just look at them, like, I'm going to let you take this one. Because depending on what it is, or if it's a topic, just getting to know who's more delicate at handling that, can answer that, or who has the resources. And I definitely defer to them often.
Okay. So we've got some good strategies. It looks like got a few people writing in as well, just, kind of reiterating some of what we've shared about making sure that we are including the families, making sure we're pausing and slowing things down as needed. I love what you shared, Maria, about just knowing who you've got in your back pocket for when you need somebody to kind of help with certain activities and aspects. And again, when you've only allotted an hour for something, you've got to sometimes move things along to get through an agenda, because that's one of the times when you might have to kind of shift into that facilitator role to say, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of charge so we can speed up here a little bit and accomplish what we need to accomplish before everybody leaves. So, all right. So let's think about just, what it takes to ensure success. So success at the party, success at your team meeting. We know sometimes that, when you're at a party, the dinner conversation or the just group dynamics works really well, and sometimes people don't know each other that well and you need some help with some conversation starters. And so just like at a dinner party, you might have, when you're at an IFSP meeting, you might just have a team that gels really well and knows each other well, and other times where it takes a little bit more work to get things going. So it's a lot easier when you do know each other. So if you have the opportunity to work with folks that you can work with over and over again, and I think, Amber, it was you that might have shared just the small talk just before you go in and before you, when you're leaving, kind of wrapping up, and having a little bit of small talk so you can get to know and develop that relationship with the people that you're working on teams with. Of course, one of the things that sometimes happens when you are working with a team that knows each other well and you spend a lot of time together, everybody can get a little bit chit-chatty and time will fly, and sometimes you end up needing somebody to help you stay on task and kind of jumping back into time management. So, Shamika, you have a couple of things that you might want to share about ensuring a successful meeting when people don't know each other all that well, or how you stay on task when everyone knows each other so well that you're having a hard time finishing what you need to do in the hour that you've allotted together?
Yes, so for this one, what I've been doing recently, and as you guys continue to work, we're doing the outcome summaries in our different innovation zones, and it kind of ties into what Jennifer said in her comment about not focusing on the percent of delays. So we've been leading our meetings using the IFS, the child outcome summaries, to lead the whole discussion throughout the meeting, and then tying it into writing those goals based off of the information that was provided at the intake. So, and what we do now, and like Amber said, even though we chat before the arenas or whatever else, we even chat before the IFSP meeting. So before we go in, I might send a text, or I might talk to the board and say, hey, okay, so we're going to do the meeting based off of the child outcome summaries. We're not going to discuss the scores, because that's what we need as service coordinators for the ASO3. So based on the report, if I already have it, I know the child qualifies, and based on getting to that arena, after they finish up the information, I say, okay, so based on the information discussed, is Johnny qualified for services, and do you have concerns? And then they will say so, and I'm normally sitting by them so I can see the scoring, so I look at their highest score, and I just put it on my ASO3, and I don't put numbers in it until I get home, and because that leads the meeting better. One, it helps my families don't like, oh my goodness, he has a 99% delay, and I'm a horrible parent. We don't go that route. So we talk about him compared to the peers, and then as we get to that point, and she said, well, is it how, like let me say, one person said, how bad is it? And then we go into, well, we're not going to say that, he's just bad. So we talk about, compared to his peers, he's not yet doing these things. However, coming into EI, that is what we're here to do, to help him to get to the point that he needs to as much as possible with your help and with our help together. And we kind of empower the family, and it goes better because we have some severe cases, we have some easy cases. And when the provider wants to get on task talking about the percentages, we redirect back to, okay, well, I understand that, but how is this affecting his social emotional aspect of interacting, or you engage it, but it takes time, and we as service coordinators is what I'm learning more and more. we have to feel comfortable to lead the way. And yes, the providers are disciplined, but we wouldn't be service coordinators if it wasn't in us. So feel comfortable going into a meeting and saying, no, let's try this. Feel comfortable, because if the family know that they can, that you're supporting them and you have their backs, they'll feel comfortable and they'll be open and honest with you. But if you're hesitant and kind of not saying, then they're hesitant, because they feed off of us. It's just like kids feed off of each other. We're their first contact, so they're kind of like letting their guards down to be with us. So we have to be careful to keep that confidence and help them understand, we're here for you. We're not here so that the providers get more kids on their caseload, because sometimes it can go that way.
Thanks, Shamika, for sharing. Are there other things that folks are doing just to help ensure for a successful meeting and help everybody stay on task and stay positive and stay focused on kind of the principles and the agenda? Are there other things that you want to chat in and chime in of something that's worked well for you? Sounds like having conversations about the numbers has been a sensitive topic. And so, is it you, Amber?
Yeah, I'll take that if you want. We've gone back and forth. Yeah, I can expand on what I meant by that. Because this could be a big part of a successful meeting in terms of how things are approached. So we've got multiple opinions here at the office about how to do that. Now, each CFC is different. Some do the meetings on a different day. Some are on the same day. We tend to have more on the same day. So when I walk in, I don't know if the kid's eligible. I don't have the percentages, et cetera. And so I do need to get that to enter it. And so we've gone back and forth in terms of, do we say the number out loud? Do we tell the parents? We've come down to, we do want it coming out at some point in the meeting. We're afraid for them to get the information later, since we don't have the reports in hand, because we do it on the same day, and then see a big delay. And now they're like, well, wait, I didn't know it was that big. And then have questions, and we're already gone. So that's one thing we've talked about. Anyways, we've gone back and forth. It's it can be a very sensitive topic, and it can be very awkward in the meeting when the therapists don't want to give the percentage and the coordinator's trying to get it. And like Nichols said, the parents can feel that awkwardness, like why don't you want to?
Sarah, I see a lot of people chiming in about this, and because we only have about 12 minutes left on our time today, I'm wondering if maybe just having some opportunity to have some follow-up discussion about how do we engage in conversations around this at meetings, so that families feel empowered and supported and have their questions answered, but that we don't focus so much on the numbers that it takes us off task for some of the bigger picture things and the strengths that we're trying to highlight and recognize. I guess if you feel like kind of continuing this conversation in some other format around this particular topic, if you could just give a show of hands if this is something that you'd like to talk more about in the future, we can kind of bank that for, okay, got a few people chiming in. Some people are writing that they really like that idea. Okay. So for the sake of just time today and getting through just a couple more things to find out where you want to spend your time for future conversations, I think we'll definitely take this note here that this is a hot topic that warrants a little bit more discussion and maybe problem solving and troubleshooting. And so thank you for contributing, everybody, and for Amber and Shamika for kind of getting us started on some of these things that are real important. So another just key theme here, and I'm going to go through, because we have 10 minutes left, I'm going to go through this really, really fast and probably just do a little bit maybe of a check-in with folks to see where we want to keep the conversation going for some of these other things as well. One of the big things we've already alluded to is the when you talk about that potluck dinner, and if people are coming and dropping off stuff and leaving, we're missing some important ingredients and some important components. And we've all been in that situation with an IFSP meeting where somebody sends their report and doesn't show up, or calls in but is only kind of partially there, and you're trying to make it a conference call situation, but not everybody can hear. And so you've got all the different parts in some capacity, but you're really missing that whole. And so, you know, that's something that we've, I'm assuming most folks have experienced it at least at one time or another where they've experienced that challenge with coordinating. And we're going to skip past this discussion right now of just kind of the what do we do to get the missing ingredients. I think we've already talked about a few of them, just that planning in advance. People are talking about how they coordinate and plan for meetings at intakes and possibly at future review meetings, scheduling in advance. Is this a component or a piece of discussion that folks, just again, we'll do a quick show of hands, is this something that you want to maybe talk a little bit more about, how we really engage and plan and get everybody that needs to be there there and for the entire duration of the meeting? Is this a topic that you want to dive in a little bit more and some other problem solving and brainstorming together for a future discussion? Just raise your hand if it's a yes, or type in a chat if it's a yes. Whatever you're more comfortable with. Okay. So some interest, not quite as hot of a topic, but definitely some interest in maybe talking about this. Thinking about how you facilitate meetings or host meetings. I think we've all been at a meeting where either we were the facilitators of it or a member of it, where everybody kind of had their turn to talk and everybody was kind of sharing their report. And I'm hoping that we haven't been at dinner parties that are facilitated the same way, where where you're sitting around a table and everybody's taking turns talking and everybody's sitting quietly. So just as that can be kind of awkward at a dinner party, you know, thinking about how we engage at IFSP meetings and facilitate or host in a different way, so that it's not, I saw this and I'm going to give my 5-minute report, or I found this, or I think this. Having some conversation about how to engage the group in conversations where it's not, it's your turn, it's your turn, it's your turn. Is this an area of interest for folks to have some future conversation about? Just raise your hand or chime in if this is something that interests you for future discussions. All right, so I'm curious too, but this is an area that I just love to hear how people are facilitating meetings. I know child outcomes is a big hot topic too, and so just talking about the numbers and talking about how you engage in those discussions about child outcomes. You know, it sounds like folks are kind of reinventing how this is being done, and so maybe folks feel really good about it, and maybe the topic is less around how you facilitate the conversation, but how do you really make it meaningful around the discussion of child outcomes. So, all right. So again, we're just skipping past a few of these things just to kind of see where folks. How about talking about benefits and barriers, just when you're trying something new, facilitating a meeting differently, or just what are, thinking about all the different challenges that you are working to kind of overcome with the moving parts of changing team dynamics and things. Is this an area that really you want to dive deeper into? Okay. I'm just skipping through because everybody's getting quiet. So I guess as we wrap up here today, it sounds like we've got a few things that folks are wanting to think about. If there's something new that you learned here, I know sometimes, when you're trying something new, it's easier to start it with a group and a team that you're comfortable with. Coming to consensus, achieving consensus, it's something that when we did our initial poll, folks said that they felt pretty good about their ability to do this. So I think it sounds like we've got a lot of strengths that maybe folks, if we do engage in some continued conversation around this, we can draw upon some of those strengths. Is achieving consensus something that folks would be interested in continuing any conversation around? Okay. All right. So we're going to just run through here for some next steps. And we're going to skip the polls. As I mentioned early on with our objectives, we knew we had a lot of stuff here, and with the spirit of being interactive, we knew we weren't going to get there. So continuing the conversation, we're going to do some follow-up with folks by, just to gather some information about what you'd like to, how you'd like to spend that time together. As I mentioned, we're going to have some time at the CFC conferences that'll give us some face-to-face time if we wanted to continue some of these conversations a little bit. Let's just take a few minutes here just as we wrap up. If you can reflect on if there's something that you learned today and something that you want to try, write it down as a note for yourself, and if you're comfortable, share that in the chat. And I'm just going to pause here for a few minutes.
While you all are doing that, I'm going to cover a couple of things here. So as Sarah has mentioned, there will be an opportunity at the upcoming CFC conferences. I believe we've allotted time during the morning breakout at both the North and the South conferences for anyone who wants to participate in that. But we can also do more of this, and whereas today was kind of like they had a big agenda of lots to bite off, and they only got about a third of the way through their big bite, and it looked like that there could be a lot of opportunity to delve a lot deeper in certain things. So is a Wednesday webinar in the morning something that is desirable for folks? Raise your hand if that works, and we can see about maybe putting some more of these together. Okay. All right. We really do have options between morning and afternoon. So what we could probably do is flip them up every so often, and so give us a little bit of time. If we try to, I'm going to talk with Sarah and Maria and the gals, and see what we can do. We certainly won't schedule anything via webinar for it'll be probably a couple months out at least, because we all know you really can't schedule anything else new in the next 45 days. So we'll do our best to accommodate those things, and we'll talk more about that. I have a couple of other things I need to talk about, but Sarah, do you want to finish up this piece here?
Yeah, and just, hopefully if you guys feel like this is helpful and you'd like to engage in more of this, we really want to be responsive. So we will do some follow-up and check in with folks about what's going to work best. Maria's going to go over just the final certificate and training eval reminder. And if you have any follow-up questions, or you want to just share in the chat if there's something new that you tried, or something new that you'd like to try, or something that you gained from here, we'd love to see it so we know what was really meaningful. But because we're kind of wrapping up here, we'll gather some of that feedback with the training evaluation as well. So Maria, if you want to wrap up.
Will do. All right, folks, thank you so much. This was an awesome attendance. I think it's a great conversation. We don't have a lot of opportunities as service coordinators to really just kind of talk about what's working and what's not working, although we do have those two conferences coming up, April 26th down in Effingham and May 11th up in Palos Hills. So if you haven't registered, please do so. We are making some tweaks to the agenda with the cafes and things like that. So, and we do ask you that you identify particular sessions, but you're not committed to whatever you've identified. It's just so we know where to put speakers in the right size rooms. For today, again, remember you will get an email. In that email will be a survey. Complete the survey, you'll get a certificate. Just keep an eye out on your in your email and your junk box and for those things. Thank you again. I hope you all have a great day. Don't blow away. It's a nice sunny day here in Springfield, Jennifer. Isn't it great? And we'll see you next time, verbally or electronically or however that is. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Amber and Shamika.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. No problem. Thank you. Bye.
Uh-oh, I think I removed, did I remove Shamika and